Hi there. Let's talk about apples. The iconic fruit that comes into your mind when you get a 3-week in-school suspension for stealing yet another urine. The thing that's so iconic about apples though is the variety. You see, unlike most other fruits, when you go into your local grocery store, more often than not, you will see a variety of different colors, shapes, and sizes of apples in display on the produce aisle. No, these apples aren't just cosmetically different, they also taste different. As for me, I did not start regularly eating apples until this year. That's right, I completely avoided apples because I thought they were bland, boring, and had no flavor whatsoever. I had thought this because when I was a little boy in elementary school, my parents brought home some groceries. And in those groceries, they gave me my first and last ever apple that I would ever eat. Fruit is an important group after all. Little Timmy can't skip out on his vitamins. And come on, the apple I got looked shiny, it looked beautiful. Who wouldn't want to take a scrumptious bite out of such a glorious creation? So I bit into it. I chewed it, then I promptly threw it away because I felt like I just ate a crunchy piece of indigestible water. After that experience, for the next 15 years of my life, I would never touch another apple. I mean, I thought, why should I try another apple again? After all, that was a bad experience. And I like other fruits way more. Bananas? Sign me up. Strawberries? Yes, sir. Grapefruit. Fast forward a few years and now I'm 20 years old. And it just so happens that I now have a job. Where do I work at? Retail. What department of retail do I work at? Produce. What are the tasks of fruit? Every single day that I work, I will without fail see a shiny line of colorful, gleaming apples just sitting there. It also doesn't help that I'm in the department that's responsible for putting the apples on the displays in the first place. So that feeling of apple hatred slowly began to fade away with time. And eventually, at the beginning of this year, I caved. I bought my first apple after my 15 plus years of absent apple agony. And this time when I bit into this apple, it was a completely different experience. It had a pleasant flavor, a satisfying crunch. It wasn't leather. It was different to how I remembered it. Why was that apple I had such a long time ago so different to the one I just had? Was it denial? Was it placebo? I decided to look more into apples, whereas eventually I stumbled upon to Apple Rankings. This blog, website, whatever you want to call it, is ran by a comedian named Brian Franch. On that website, there are over 50 different apple varieties, with each one being ranked on the system curated by Franch himself. Now I should note, even though I think this website is both hilarious and educational, it's not PG friendly at all, so please take that into precaution when reading the reviews. Anyways, if you're curious as to what apple I bought that day, it was a Gala apple. To me, the Gala was a solid and nice fruit in general. To the blog though.
Look at this dude.
Yeah, 70 out of 100? That's a 70 out of 100 apple. And what would an 80 out of 100 apple taste like? What about a 90 out of 100 apple? My retail surely doesn't have any of those high tier ones, right? Well, it does. It also just so happens it has some of the abominable ones as well. That's why I decided I'm gonna make my own tier list of apples. Exclusively the ones I could find on my retail in the month of February. I was able to get over 11 different varieties of apples, and in this video, I'm going to judge them on my own scale of reference. This list will assume that the apples are eaten raw as a snack. I am not taking into account their baking application or cider production, because frankly I don't know much about either of those. Each apple will be judged on 5 categories, each category being out of 5, with 5 being the best and 1 being the worst. These categories are: skin. Does the skin of the apple break apart easily, or does it stick while you try to swallow? Flavor. Pretty self-explanatory. Do I enjoy how the apple tastes or not? Is there sweetness? Is there tartness? A good balance? Pretty much the elements that makes an apple a delicious snack. Flesh. So I kind of messed up this category during post-production. In this video's context, flesh is pretty much just shelf life. Crispiness. Is there a crunch? Is there a snappiness with every bite? Or am I chewing into a soft sponge? Finally, we have texture. Texture will reference the actual inside of the apple. In other words, this category is actually supposed to be flesh, but I messed up some plain variety scripts on its texture. Does the apple have a firm, smooth, and consistent texture with every bite, or is it just a sandcastle? Based on these categories, each apple will have a total potential of 25 points. I'll also be including a completely subjective A to F tier list of my overall enjoyment of the apple. This means that an apple can have a high score, but a low placement if I just didn't like it. I'm now going to choose the order of the apples that I eat, by random choice. Well, hello there. Transition. Was it a good transition? I'm not sure. I actually have a camera right there. It's my phone because I don't have money for a real camera. But we have 2 cameras, so we have proof of concept that I am not rigging this Wheel of Fortune type thing for choosing my fate. So as you can see right here, I have the 10 apples that I've bought right on this wheel picker. So basically I'm going to spin this wheel. Whichever apple lands first, so if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's the first apple I'm going to eat in that order. If I get that number again, so for example, if I roll 2 ones in a row, we just will go in and we just roll again. I'm going to keep on rolling until all 10 apples have been picked. I'm really hoping we don't get all the bad apples on the first day. That would not be ideal. Oh yeah, I also have a notepad to keep track of which ones we're doing in order, so. Okay, not a bad one. Oh, there's a remove feature on this wheel. I actually didn't know. That means I need to list it down. We're actually getting pretty good apples for the first day. I didn't remove the option again. What am I doing? The first day is gonna be pleasant, and I respect that. We're gonna remove the option now. Oh, fuck. Day 2 starts with Fuji. Good. We roll again, boys. Opal. Somebody tells me we're about to get all the bad apples on the last day, and that's also not ideal. Okay, yep, there's one of them. Gala. Okay, to be fair, it's not the very last apple we have to eat, but okay, listen. I'm very scared of this one. I don't want to eat this one raw. Next ones. This is what I get for not removing it from the list. Okay, we have 2 apples left. Whichever one we roll will be the second to last. Sugar Bee. Sugar Bee will be the 9th apple we eat, and then the final apple that I am going to consume is going to be the Autumn Glory Days apple. Why did I call it Autumn Glory Days? Okay, look, I'm not actually doing that on purpose. So you may have noticed that I completely forgot to include the 11th apple during the wheel roulette. This apple was the Cosmic Crisp, and for the sake of this video, the Cosmic Crisp will be the 11th / last apple that I try. I do mention this discrepancy again later on in the video, but it's important to bring it up now as well just to avoid confusion. Anyway, back to the video. So now, we got our apples chosen. I'm gonna go to the living room and do the first 3 right now. So that's gonna be fun. I need to save this. As you can see, we're here in my living room, or the house's living room, and I have to record all these scenes when no one in my family is in the house, which includes my brothers. But that being said, here are the 3 apples that I have chosen for today, or the wheel chosen. I have my beautiful manure sheet. So our first apple we're eating is Pink Lady, and we are going to judge it by the 5 criteria that I listed. And this is all personal. This is a completely subjective list. If you disagree, I do not care. Honestly, I actually care a little bit. So let's get into it. This is the Pink Lady apple. It looks kind of appearance, like just general appearance is not a factor in our apple tasting abilities. There's actually some weird things about the Pink Lady apple, based on what I read from the Apple blog. Maybe a Cripps Pink apple, which is considered on the Apple blog as worse in every way than a Pink Lady apple. There's a lot of companies that like to interchange Pink Lady with Cripps Pink, even though they're technically 2 different apples. I'm just gonna call it a Pink Lady, and we're gonna judge it as a Pink Lady for the sake of this tier list. Pink Lady, normal solid. First apple of the day, let's go. Okay, let's talk about the apple. So, first off, skin. Skin on this is a 3. The skin kind of lingers in your mouth. It doesn't like just melt away like some apples do. Right in the middle of the pack, nothing bad about it. Flavor. This apple has a nice zingness to it. Kind of like somewhat tart, not really, but also it's pretty sweet and it's really juicy. Good flavor. 4 out of 5. Flesh. The flesh stands out for a pretty long time, especially when you just put it in room temperature or you leave it out on the counter. Flesh on this is 5 out of 5. I think it's no question that the flesh on this stands pretty dang well. Crispiness. I just realized I put the crispy factor into the flavor portion of my review. We already know crispiness is a solid... Actually, let me try it again. Crispiness is like a 5 out of 5. There's a good crunch to it, so pretty dang good. Yeah. And then texture. I'd say it's a little bit... How do I say this? There's some graininess. Again, it's not overpowering, which I'm still gonna give it a 4 out of 5. This apple's pretty dang good, and I need to get a paper so I can write down my notes. Pencil. I'm a professional journalist. This apple overall gets a 21 out of 25. That's like super high for an apple. Now, as per part of the course, I have to finish this. And I feel like I'm gonna regret adding this rule when we get to the later, crappier apples. And just in general, because these apples are pretty filling. Yeah, I'm gonna regret this rule. On the last day, I had to eat 4 whole apples. I didn't think that through. I go with the rules. We have to follow the rules. Pretty good apple to start this list off. Pink Lady, you done did a good job. Feel good about yourself. So next apple on our list is the Envy apple. Yet another cool shot. So, this is one of the apples that I've actually eaten before. And I already know what's gonna hold this apple back significantly compared to the Pink Lady especially. It is what it is. Here we go into the crunch, here we go into the bite, which I'm actually kind of dreading, and you'll see why. There we go. Perfect angle. You get enough of my goofy face, and at the same time, you get some of the apple shots. So, I got some pretty bad news about this apple. The last time I had this apple, the categories that it really excelled at from the last time I ate it did not present themselves this time. Let's start with the skin. The skin is a 1 out of 5. The skin on this apple absolutely sucks. It's probably gonna be the apple with the worst skin in this whole tier list. It lingers in on your mouth. It's really hard to just swallow the skin. It really ruins the experience of this apple because usually the other factors of this apple, so the flavor, flesh, crispiness, and texture, are usually pretty dang good because this apple is really held back by the skin. But on this Envy apple in particular, it tastes extremely watery, and it usually doesn't taste extremely watery. One sec, wasn't even my laptop. But anyways, this apple usually excels in flavor especially, but flavor this time, very bad. I'm gonna say one thing, it's not tart. And like I said, the flavor of this apple is usually really good. This Envy apple in particular that I got today is just not hitting it. Maybe it's because I ate the Pink Lady apple first and the flavor of the Pink Lady apple was really good. Just because this Envy apple was bad and I have to go based on this Envy apple in particular, I'm gonna be generous and say 2.5 out of 5 because it's not atrocious, but there's just not enough for it to be any higher. Flesh! Flesh holds up really well as well. So in the similar situation with the Pink Lady, with the flesh of the Envy apple is really good and it can hold up for a long time if you just place it in the correct condition. So flesh on the Envy apples, 5 out of 5. Now crispiness. Crispiness on this one, perfect. It's perfect. It's another 5 out of 5. You get this beautiful crunch when you bite into it, and despite the skin really holding this back, the crispiness is kind of what makes up for it. Flesh and crispiness for both the Pink Lady and Envy are just perfect. I don't think you can really get any better than those two when it comes down to just being able to store it for a very long time and just having a really nice crunch that is satisfying every time you eat the apple. Texture, so the actual inside of the apple, I'm just gonna keep saying that. 5 out of 5. Like I said, the Envy apple is usually really good, excluding the skin, but this Envy apple in particular had lackluster flavor as well. Unlike the Pink Lady, which had a little bit of a graininess inside of it, there's no graininess other than the skin. But overall, this apple has a really nice inside texture. But for now, this apple scores a 18.5 out of 5. 18.5 out of 25. My bad, I'm kind of tired. Yeah, it's just the skin. The flavor of this particular Envy apple also held it back because it was really tasteless. It was sweet and there was some flavor, but I did not taste much. As per usual, following my guidelines, we do not waste food here. I'm eating the whole thing to the core. I'm not eating the actual core. Honeycrisp apple. Here we go. Y'all already know. I need to get... So let me put into perspective the Honeycrisp apple. The website puts this apple in extremely high regard. It's pretty much on the top of the list, including the Sweet Tango. The Sweet Tango is a breed of the Honeycrisp apple. The Honeycrisp apple has a really high expectation. This is another apple, by the way, that I've not had before. It's just an overall really good apple, according to many people. It's pretty easy to find. Basically, this is the new underdog of the apple industry. Let's begin. Honeycrisp apple. Let's start off with the skin. It's unfortunate because all the hype I was reading about the Honeycrisp apple, I thought the skin would be better. Let me say, these apples are all being bought from a random retail chain. Obviously, if you get an apple from your local farmer's market, if you get an apple that's, actually closer to where it is planted, then obviously the apple's gonna taste better. In terms of the Honeycrisp apple that I am eating, it's not as bad as the Envy apple. It has a skin that really just doesn't want you to swallow it, and it just lingers on your mouth for too long for it to be comfortable. I'm debating if I should give the skin of it a 2.5 or a 2. Let's try another bite. Okay, upon further verdict, skin is 2.5 out of 5. The skin isn't nearly as bad as the Envy apple, but for some reason I just realized I put the skin for the Pink Lady apple as a 3 out of 5. First, post-modification. I'm moving the skin of the Pink Lady from a 3 out of 5 to a 4 out of 5, because the skin of the Pink Lady was way better than this one, and this one is way better than the Envy apple. Okay, Flavor. Do I think it's as good as the Pink Lady?
Go crazy!
Tell you what, I think the flavor ties with Pink Lady. There's definitely flavor there that you can taste, and it's really good flavor too. The Honeycrisp is definitely more sweeter than the Pink Lady is. It's not as tart. Is it the best tasting apple? No. It's really nice flavor that's complemented by a good sweet base, a little bit of tartness to provide a nice experience. Now, let's talk about the flesh. From my experience with the Honeycrisp apple, flesh on this is just not the best. Do I think it's atrocious flesh? No, and we will get to apples that do have pretty bad flesh later on. Now, obviously not to the point where you can stick your finger in it and then boom, your finger comes out the other side of the apple. Not that bad. Most of the Honeycrisp apples look completely fine, but I'm gonna say flesh. Let's say flesh is 3 out of 5. It may go down, but right now I'd say 3 out of 5 for flesh is a fair point. Not offensive, but not amazing. Okay, crispiness. I don't know what's up today with the crispiness of these apples, but this is another 5 out of 5 on crispiness. Like, here. Like I said, I don't know what it is with the apples that we got today, but every apple has a perfect score in crispiness. I mean, it's literally in the name, Honeycrisp. You better be crispy. Okay, texture. I don't think the texture is as good as an Envy apple, but the actual texture of the inside of the apple is still really good. Let's do 4.5 out of 5. It's close to perfect from what I was eating. So now, the totals for the Honeycrisp apple. Why'd I add so many decimals? 19! 19 out of 25. Solid apple. I gotta finish it. Per rules. Not gonna lie, I am getting flavor fatigue from apples now, and this is the first day. It's day 2. It's like 8:20 in the morning, and as you can see, there's an apple here that I'm pretty worried about. We'll get to it when the time comes. You also may have noticed that instead of 3 apples today, there's actually 4. I realized after I recorded the first day, turns out I somehow forgot the Cosmic Crisp apple. The Cosmic Crisp apple will appear on day 3 as the very last apple. Gala, which was supposed to be the first apple on day 3, has been moved as the last apple on day 2. Without further ado though, let's get to it. The first apple for today is the Fuji apple. So, let's show you it. So let's talk about the Fuji apple. Yes, I've had this Fuji apple before. This is one of my more preferred apples before I started really branching out. This apple was, I would say, the second apple of my choice after I started buying the Galas. Really, the only thing that the Fuji has going for it compared to the Gala is the sweetness. The sweetness of Fuji apple is what makes it so popular in stores in the first place. And if you didn't know, it's apparently the #1 selling apple in Japan. I have that memorized. That's kind of scary. I do think it's a bit overrated though. I'll go ahead and tell you why that's the case. Skin of a Fuji apple. That's like a 3 out of 5. Let me try it again, actually. Let's say 3.5 out of 5 actually. It's still slightly worse than the Pink Lady skin. Definitely not as bad as the Envy. Flavor. This is where it gets interesting. Flavor is like 3 out of 5. The only reason it beat out the Envy apple is because the Envy apple I had that day just sucked. Just because of that factor, the Fuji apple barely beat out the Envy apple in taste. I don't think it tastes amazing, but it definitely doesn't taste as bad, especially on apple rankings where it's considered as a really bad apple. I say it's fine. It's really sweet, so it does bump it up to 3 just because of how sweet it is. Good job, Fuji. You're not bad. Flesh up a Fuji apple. The flesh holds up pretty well. They don't really bruise. It takes them a really long time because usually when I'm taking out the markdowns, it's not usually the Fuji apples. Like the other apples such as the Envy and Pink Lady, which had really good flesh. This one isn't as good as those, but it's better than the Honeycrisp, what I see way more frequently. I'm gonna say the flesh of the Fuji apple will also shelf life. I should have just called it shelf life. Flesh is gonna be 4 out of 5. Crispiness. There is a snappiness to this apple. It's definitely not as prominent as some other apples that we've been over so far. It's kind of just average. I would say 3.5 out of 5. Again, it's not terrible, but it's not anything spectacular. Texture. The texture of the apple, I have to keep going back. Fuji, 4.5 out of 5 on texture. I mean, honestly, so far, all the apples that we've done on this list have not really failed on texture. So if we add all of this up, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Oh no. 18.5 out of 5. 18.5 out of 25. Higher than I thought it would make on this list. For the scoring portion, that is, because obviously we're gonna have another separate list at the end, but like, not bad. It's actually pretty solid. And now I have to eat the whole thing, because, like I said, that's the rules. I'm gonna make a change. Texture's gonna go down to 3.5. The texture's not as good as I initially thought it was when I bit into it. It is a bit grainy, but again, it's not like completely offensive. It's just there is a noticeable texture change to what I originally thought. So 3.5 out of 5. It drops down a point. 17.5. Not bad. Solid. So, we just ate the Fuji apple. Overall, not a bad start to the day. So, next apple we have is a very interesting looking one. It's the Opal apple, the yellow goddess. That's not the actual name of it. It's something I just said. There it is. Okay, so the Opal apple. I'm gonna just say what F said on his apple rankings about this apple. Apparently, appearance-wise, looks absolutely terrible. Am I the only one that doesn't think this apple looks bad? I think this apple looks kind of nice. I don't know. I like how this apple looks. Apparently, he didn't though. So the appearance tab on that apple rankings list, this apple just tanks. At least appearance is not a factor in this tier list or like. Everything else on the apple, according to his apple rankings thing, it was like really good. So I am kind of excited to try this one. Let's go ahead and try it. We'll try it again. Bazinga! Let's talk. I want to say off the bat, this apple kind of tastes like a pear. I do not know how it tastes like a pear, but that's the best way I can describe its flavor. A pretty good pear too, actually. Let's talk about the skin. The skin of this apple is so far the best skin I've had on this list. It falls apart when you eat it. Compared to the Pink Lady, which had a little bit of lingering, this one is less. You notice when I take a bite, the skin doesn't like flap away by the actual flesh of the apple, which, okay, it's just, it's put. There's nothing bad about the skin. Because there's nothing atrocious about the skin about the apple, this is the first apple with a perfect skin rating. Congratulations, Opal. Flavor. Flavor's also 5 out of 5. This one really hits the sweet and tartness, like balance, just really well. Come on, dude. Wait. So I'm gonna go back to the skin. I know I'm going back and forth, but say the skin's 4.5 out of 5. It was a little bit more lingering, but again, it wasn't terrible. It's still good. If I'm being for you, I don't think it's gonna be a perfect skin rating on any apple. If this one can't get a perfect skin rating, I don't think a perfect skin rating is gonna be applicable today. Let's talk about flesh. Flesh is also 5 out of 5. This apple holds out a really long time when you're putting it on your shelves or countertops. I don't know why you put it in. I also know this because customers just don't buy this apple at all. Like, this is a very unpopular apple. If you haven't tried Opal apple and you like are interested in it, or you just were scared because of its appearance, please get it. It's really good. Now let's talk about the crispiness. 5 out of 5, baby. Okay. This apple's having a run for some money. And this apple, you can easily just bite into it, and it still has this beautiful snout effect of snapping that you just can't get with most of these other apples. It's really good. Now, texture. This is unfortunately where I think this falls a little bit short. 4 out of 5 on texture. Like other apples, I think there's more graininess to this apple compared to the other ones we've had so far. But like, in a way, the graininess kind of works with this apple. Like, you know how I said the flavor kind of tastes like a pear? You know, pears aren't really that smooth. They also have a kind of a grainy-ish texture. And this kind of just like reminds you of a pear, you know? It fits the apple's taste. Which is a weird thing to say, because with every other apple, if the apple was this grainy, it would bump it down pretty low, but I think it kind of works with the Opal apple. I think it just complements the apple pretty well. Lowest category of this apple is 5 out of 5. This is a good apple. Good job, Opal, for taking my time enjoying this beautiful thing, so. Opal apple gets a 23.5 out of 25. That's probably going to be the best one of this list. And I wasn't expecting the Opal apple to be literally the best, but it's just like, bro, come on. This thing is so good. I'm sad that it's over, because now... Oh, God. So, a few things. Firstly, my phone is almost out of storage space. In fact, it only has 17 minutes left. I'm doing this with the Red Delicious apple. You know, this limited time thing. So excited for this one. Let's... Let me make sure it's... let's talk about the Red Delicious. So, remember at the beginning of the video where I was like, my parents went to the grocery store, they gave me an apple to try. I am 100% sure they got me a Red Delicious. On the Apple Rankings website, this apple was near the bottom of the list. It scored, I think, like 25 out of 100. The only reason it's even 25 out of 100 is because it was available at the time and it does not cost that much. Every other category of the Red Delicious absolutely failed. If you also didn't know, as time went on, the good qualities of the Red Delicious apple were eventually traded for just cosmetic appearance only, because that's what consumers buy. I don't even think it looks that good. It looks just boring. And this apple used to be the most popular apple until the Gala apple took it over in 2016 as the #1 apple. This apple's been falling off hard, and there's probably a good reason for it. We're gonna take a bite of it. I don't want to eat this, man. Oh, I have to eat the whole thing? I made that a rule. I have to eat the whole apple. This sucks. Skin. It is ever so slightly better than the envy apple. The skin sucks. It's terrible. It really lingers on. You don't want to swallow the skin of this apple. It's terrible. 1.5 out of 5. Just... no. Flavor. There's a slight sweetness to this particular Red Delicious apple, but I do understand the frustration because that's literally the only thing going for this apple is the little bit of sweetness to it. There's no flavor. It's not juicy. Yeah, flavor's 1 out of 5. Get out of here with the flavor there. Flesh. This is the only category that gives this apple anything in this list today. And it's not even the best. It's just average. It's like 4 out of 5. It's the same as the Fuji apple was. If you want an apple that just holds out on your counter where you dread eating it because it's that terrible, be my guest. Leave it out. Your money, not mine. Crispiness. This is an instance of an apple that's too hard. I don't even think there is a crispiness to this apple. It's just a rock. There's a difference between a snappy and crisp sensation compared to just eating a literal stone from 160/80. Crispiness is 1 out of 5. I had to eat the whole thing. Texture's awful. They weren't kidding when they said this apple feels like a piece of sandpaper on the inside. If you don't want to choke to death, I wouldn't recommend getting this. And yeah, back to texture. 1 out of 5 on texture. Overall score for this apple, 8.5 out of 25. The only reason it's above a 5 is because the flesh portion is kind of carrying this. Good job, Red Delicious. You suck. How much of this apple's left? Oh, Jesus. Dude, I'm so... yeah! So my camera has 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to... I'll be right back. Well, we're back. How does something literally have the texture of sand? I don't understand. What? I don't know if the camera can get this, but what is that? That's literally just... does it actually get that? Yeah, I can't eat through that. There's no way. It's like sand. I think I did a good job finishing as much as I could. I cannot eat any more of that crap. Okay, so I have good news. My brother just left, which means I can be way more obnoxious and loud than I already was. So all I have to say about the red apple was... anyways, after that traumatic experience, I think it's a good thing that we're ending on a overall good rounding apple, the Gala apple. Oh yeah, we got to do this. There it is. Okay, let's talk about the red. Anyways, let's talk about the Gala real quick. The red I'm so traumatized from eating that red delicious apple that I'm gonna keep mixing it up now, am I? Anyways, the Gala apple. Very good overall apple. It rounds up to be just middle of the tier, middle of the pack. As being red delicious in terms of the most popular apple in America in 2016, like I said. Thank God for that. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to eat this after, you know, I am actually so excited to take a bite of something that has flavor, that is not a piece of leather. Let's go. Compared to the Red Delicious apple, this is just the same. I start to judge it based on others though. And for that reason, the skin is a 3 out of 5. There's a part of it that just lingers on, and it's a little bit hard to swallow, but it's not terrible, and it's nowhere near the envy of Red Delicious. So good job, Gala. Like I said, this is just gonna be probably middle of the pack for every category, I'm assuming. This flavor, you know what, actually? I think flavor is actually slightly better than the Fuji apples. Slightly. 3.5 out of 5 for the flavor. I don't think it's anything spectacular, but it's not gonna fail you if you just want a simple apple for the day. So now, flesh. This may be because Gala is the most common apple we put on our shelves, but I do have to put a lot of these back. I don't really know the shelf life of this one as well as some of the other ones, just because there's that factor playing into it. I think it stands pretty well overall, but I do notice that it goes out a little bit faster to some other apples. I'd say flesh is 3 out of 5. Crispiness. Crispiness of this apple is actually not bad. I do have to admit, the skin is starting to get a little bit worse as I chew more into it. The skin has been dropped down to 2.5 out of 5. Back to the crispiness. I have to try it again. I don't know. I'd say 4 out of 5 on crispiness. It's pretty crisp. There's nothing else to say. It's like good bite. You get a good snap of it. It's good. The last category, texture. Pretty good. I think it's the same as the Fuji. There's a little bit of a graininess to it that doesn't work in favor like the Opal apple does, but like it's pretty solid. The texture isn't bad. It's 3.5 out of 5. And now we tally up the totals. Decimal points. So, according to my completely professional opinion, this apple is actually the second lowest on the list right now, 16.5 out of 25, which is shocking. Like, I don't think it's bad. Overall, this is just like I said, middle of the road. If you're just looking for a good general apple to snack on, choose this one. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and finish it, because that's the rules. Alright, if you're wondering why I look like some wannabe gangster, it's because I just got back from the gym and the house was completely empty, so I could be as loud as I want because no one's home. So this is day 3 of the apple tier list thing. You already know that. And the first apple we're eating is this is just the best post-workout snack I could think of. A Granny Smith apple. I really wish this rolled as like the very last one because that'd be hilarious, but no, I guess we're getting the worst one out the way. Excluding that factor, Granny Smith apple is first, and oh boy, I don't want to eat this one. Let me get the very... Okay, so I want to clarify some things about the Granny Smith apple. If we're taking into account how I'm judging it on this, I think there's some factors about the Granny Smith apple that actually hold up pretty well. Even when it's not for just baking purposes, you're just eating it because you're a masochist. If you didn't know already, the Granny Smith apple is extremely tart. I've never had one before, and I'm scared to eat this because I am absolutely garbage with tart food. Now, obviously, when we've had the other apples, like Pink Lady, for example, the tartness was balanced by a nice sweetness. Apparently, this one is literally just tart. I also want to clear up another thing. There's gonna be someone to ask, what is a big fat apple? I was looking for a lunchbox-sized Granny Smith apple, but they were out. So I had to settle for a ginormous hunk of an apple. I think this is actually the biggest apple I've had in the bag. But let's get into it. It's supposed to be used for baking, but I'm eating it raw. Oh. Oh no. I didn't even take that big of a bite out of it. I know I made a rule. I don't like food waste. But I don't think I can eat this whole thing. Oh, why did I make this rule? I could eat the Red Delicious because even though Red Delicious was garbage in every right of the definition, at least it wasn't hard and painful. This is painful to eat. Oh god. Okay, skin. The skin is actually really bad. I didn't think the skin would be bad. I thought it would be like, oh, maybe 3 out of 5. No, the skin really lingers on. I still think it's slightly better than the Envy apple. The Envy apple is just the king of crappy skin, but the skin's bad. 1.5. I have to eat more of it. I'm dreading. Flavor. If you like warhead candies, you're a masochist, and you like pain, then this is the apple for you because it's not supposed to be eaten raw unless if you are just a psychopath. What was I saying? Oh yeah, flavor. Oh, that does not help. There is actually a nice solid sweetness in a way to it. It is pretty juicy, I will admit. I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 even though it is absolutely painful. Good job. Honeycrisp.
I mean, Granny Smith flesh. As much as I hate giving this anything higher than a 2 out of 5, it's a 5 out of 5. It has good flesh. It holds up well. Crispiness. Crispiness is surprisingly there. 4 out of 5. I don't think it's as good as some apples we've had, but not bad. I'm surprised it's actually gonna rank this high on the point category. That's dumb. Texture. The texture of the actual apple is good too. I hate saying that. When you bite into it, it's not too grainy. It's actually like pretty smooth, honestly. And nonetheless, texture gets, I think, a solid 4.5 out of 5. I'm just trying to delay eating another bite. It's so bad. Overall, the Granny Smith actually gets an 18 out of 25. That's actually not bad. Look, I don't know. I really don't know if I could be. Bro, like, makes your gums so dry. I don't know how to describe that feeling. Like, I make the rules, but you know what? I didn't say I have to eat the whole apple in one go. What I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna move on to the next apple, and I'm just gonna nibble on the Granny Smith apple as I'm also eating the other apples. And hopefully these nice apples will be better than... God. I'm not even religious. What am I doing? Okay, so I rinsed my mouth with water. I said it didn't help, and water doesn't help that much with that. I still have like 1/2 of it left. That's why we're moving on to the next apple. Oh, I'm in pain. The sugar bee apple. I lost the sticker somehow, but the sugar bee apple. Let's talk about the sugar bee apple. I've had this one multiple times. I really cannot stress how delicious this thing is. Probably the best tasting apple that I'm gonna have in this whole list. I'm not even kidding. Now that being said, is it gonna be the top apple of this tier list? Go ahead and just bite into this beautiful thing, and I will nibble on the Granny Smith as I continue to be in pain. So hopefully this balances out with that, and so do these. Okay. My pencil's out of there. Okay, let's talk about the skin. This one has some lingering property. It's not complete melt away in your mouth, but it's not inflicting the apple in any negative way. So skin's 4 out of 5. Now let's talk about flavor. Like I said, flavor is a really subjective category in this video today. And I know I'm saying it's supposed to be 5 out of 5. You can't go any higher than 5 out of 5.
Sorry, this is really video.
So, flavor's 6 out of 5, bro. This is the best tasting apple. There's no questions about it. I can't express how delicious this thing tastes. It's so good. This apple, honestly, it's not really tart at all. In pure contrast to Granny Smith, which I still need to nibble on. So eating both the sweetest apple we have and the most tart apple we have at the same time kind of helps, but then once the sweet apple is gone, it's back to Granny Smith torture. Sugar bee is extremely sweet. It's really juicy too. Combine juiciness with sweetness and an actual like flavor. Damn. Best flavor apple with that is here. There's no question. Flesh. Flesh of this apple, so again, shelf life is not good. I swear they really only last like 2 to 3 days on the counter. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that's all sugar bee apples, but I've seen so many sugar bee apples that like once we put them out on the display, they start bruising, they start aging really quickly. So basically, once you get the sugar bee, you need to eat it as quickly as you can. Don't buy a sugar bee if you know you're not gonna eat it for a bit. Literally, the flavor of this apple is just so beautiful, but the flesh really holds it back here. So 2 out of 5. Crispiness, 5 out of 5. It's crispy, dude. Like, come on, man. Seriously. You gotta say more. You gotta say and texture. 5 out of 5. When you bite into it, you're biting into a taste of what it's like to be in Allen, Texas. Or some other rich suburb, I don't know. Now, I do want to say, okay, this won't affect the apple's placement here. The sugar bee apple is more expensive than all these other apples I've got. Believe it or not, I think the price per pound of this apple at my retail was $2.69. So literally $2.69 for a pound of this. I am in Kansas, so our prices aren't nearly as bad as some other states. It's not cheap. Secondly, and this is like completely unrelated, but the advertisement for the sugar bee apple. I saw the video and it's like, oh, well, this is a nice showcase of where the sugar bee apple's grown. And then this spawn from Satan. I don't know what this creature is. It just comes in from the right side of the screen. And I think it's supposed to be the sugar bee, like the actual sugar bee. But that's not a bee. That's something else, man. What is that thing? Seriously, it won't affect the score. This is just, please update your mascot, sugar bee. Please update it. Overall, sugar bee apple. 22 out of 25. The sugar bee apple is a damn good apple. Let's try strategy again. Let's go. You got this.
Baba Booey.
You don't got this. How much more of this? I have so much Granny Smith apple left. It's not even funny. This is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go back and forth between the Granny Smith and the Sugar Bee apple. You gotta get the strategy down. It had to be like smaller Granny Smiths, right? There's no way this was the smallest one out of the batch I saw. Gotta get the fruit out eating the Granny Smith. That's what water doesn't help. What am I doing? Sugar Bee's just a W. Why did I get that? No protein, but lots of sugar. I'm going for it. I need to take a bite of this Sugar Bee. What am I doing? I just want to get this out the way.
Perfect.
I'm so lucky that I rolled the Sugar Bee apple right after the Granny Smith. Oh, no. This is quite literally the worst mukbang ever. Okay. I thought the Red Delicious apple was a terrible thing to eat, and it was, but this is way worse. Final bite. I did it! Yeah! So, luckily, the good news is I can just eat the rest of the Sugar Bee. This is my reward! But we have 2 other apples after I finish this one. I think these are pretty solid, so I deserve this. I don't think I would have been able to finish the torture chamber if I didn't have the Sugar Bee. Up a bunch of Sugar Bee. Okay, we have 2 more apples, and neither of these should be nearly as painful as that was. I need to use the restroom. This is not it, man. This is not it. I'm just gonna do something real quick. You see this? How far can I chuck this piece of garbage? Stupid piece of garbage. Alright, that painful experience. We now just have 2 more apples left. Next one is Autumn Glory. I have not had this apple before. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna try it out. You know, gotta get the graphics for the project. Ooh, that actually looks kind of cool. I'm gonna black. Okay, let's talk about the Autumn Glory apple. If you couldn't tell by its name already, this is a seasonal apple. I think we started selling this one in October, and we're still selling it, but I think it's almost out of season. So, limited edition, I guess. On the Apple Rankings website, this apple was actually ranked pretty low. Fans stated that this apple tastes literally like medicine. So I'm actually curious how this is gonna taste. Without further ado, I'm going. That's interesting. The flavor of this apple is like, if we're talking about like how unique the flavor is, it's by far the most unique flavor out of anything I've had. If you were just wanting to have an apple that literally just tastes exactly like apple cider, I think it actually tastes more like apple juice than apple cider, but
You got mail.
just because I think the flavor is kind of cool, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. You may absolutely hate the flavor of this apple because it really is different from other ones I've had today. It's interesting. I respect it. Oh, it looks like I skipped over skin. Skin! I think it's not like a completely offensive skin, but there's definitely a good amount of lingering. It does stick with your mouth for a bit. I don't think it's like too offensive, but it definitely isn't the best skin. So I'm gonna say 2 out of 5 because I think it's slightly worse than some of them that we had. Flesh. It's kind of hard to tell with these. I don't know. The flesh on this is kind of mid. I'm gonna say 3.5 out of 5 because I know I've seen it hold out for a while, but I still had to send some back, so I think the flesh is fine. Crispiness. Let me try it again. 5 out of 5 on crispiness. It's just a good, snappy, crisp apple. You bite into it, there's no like hold back on it. It's crispy apple. And finally, the texture or the actual flesh of the apple. Let's try it again. This apple has one of the best textures that I've had. And it's weird because you don't expect something like the Autumn Glory to have like pretty good texture, but it's really smooth. Texture's 5 out of 5. The most interesting part of the apple is the flavor. It also has a pretty good score in other categories, so Autumn Glory, let's see. The only thing that's really holding this apple back is the skin, I would say. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think it's as bad as franchise apple. That Granny Smith has like mentally ruined me, man. 20 out of 25! Not bad. I'm still mad that the Granny Smith gets 18 out of 25, but I made the categories like Granny Smith got lucky. Now we finish the rest of this one. It's not that big, so I can finish it pretty nicely. What I'm saying is, this is like way better. There we go. I'm going down. We got one more apple left. Cosmic Crisp. Uh-oh, this one has a little bit of a bruise on it. Oh well, I'm gonna eat it anyway. Anyways, let me get the sticker, because the sticker makes it even better. Okay, let's talk about Cosmic Crisp. If it wasn't already clear from its literal name, it is a very, very crispy apple. You know how I gave Sugar Bee flavor out 6 out of 5 because I thought the flavor of the Sugar Bee was so good? Well, this one, it's gonna probably get, and by probably I mean definitely is gonna get a 6 out of 5 on crispiness. I'll show you what I mean.
Holy moly.
I mean, it's literally in its name, so it has to be crisp, right? Oh, let's get the other categories and let's just say crispiness, 6 out of 5. By far the crispiest apple on this whole list. So, let's go back up now to the other categories. Let's start off with skin. Skin's 4 out of 5. It's not perfect by any means, but it's solid enough to where it's not like really hindering the apple at all. You basically notice it, but it's just inoffensive. Flavor. Now this, it's kind of like the Pink Lady apple. Now it combines a nice tartness and sweetness together. Like a very nice combination of flavor. It's really juicy. I should have made juiciness its own category now thinking about it. I just put it down in flavor. So flavor, I'm gonna say 4.5 out of 5. I really like the balance between the tartness and the sweetness. Flesh. This is where it also falls back again. I don't think it's as bad as Sugar Bee, but I still have to like take a lot of these down to markdowns. I don't think they hold up as well as some others on this list especially, but like I said, I think it's better than Sugar Bee by a wide margin. We'll do 3.5 out of 5 for flesh. Texture. Most of the apples got a really good score on texture. Like I didn't really notice a bad texture on any apples other than the Red Delicious. Even the Granny Smith had solid texture. Red Delicious though, I don't know how it screwed it up so bad. It just did. The Cosmic Crisp, I think it's smooth. It's literally smooth, like the Gordon Sugar Bee. Good job. 5 out of 5 with the texture. So we add those up, and this one's gonna be maybe the highest one. 23 out of 25. That's surprisingly the highest one. Well, a few of them that have 22 out of 25. But then most of them I think go below 20. What a nice way to end this recording session, man. Jesus. I wonder how many calories today was. This definitely had the most calories.
Congratulations, you won.
Well, that's all the apples for the list. I will meet y'all back in my room where we tally up the scores and make our very subjective tier list on the apples that I have eaten. Okay. Okay, so, this isn't, wait, hold on. Yep, this is better. Okay.
As you can see, I'm wearing the same clothes as I did in the intro. No, this isn't recorded on the same day. This is just coincidence. Anyways, we're finally at the conclusion of the video, so there's just a few things I want to go over before I send off myself or something. By send off, I mean like finish, not other things. For the most part, the tier list I made during the video is pretty much what I still think about all the apples, other than a few changes which I have listed off on the back of the original sheet, which I'll quickly go over. Now, when I mean changes, I pretty much just mean the score tier list. My opinion on the enjoyment of apples hasn't really changed much, so the first changes are going to happen to the Envy apple. Two things. Firstly, the flesh, it goes down from a 5 to a 2.5. But pretty much last week, I bought an Envy apple, and it literally lasted for 3 days until it got really bad. Also, just in general, I see Envy apples just like, their flesh doesn't stand up as well as I thought it did in the video, so I have to bump it down significantly. Now, however, I decided to try the Envy apple one more time to see if the flavor will be better. So I can confidently say that the flavor of that was 10 times better than the one I had on the video. I actually taste something. It tastes good, but I would say 4.5 out of 5 is good. It's not as good as something like the Sugar Bee for me, but like, it's still really good flavor when you get a good one. So pretty much flesh and flavor on the Envy apple was gonna flip-flop. So flesh was originally 5, now it's 2.5. Flavor was originally 2.5, and now it's 4.5. Next one we're gonna talk about is Granny Smith. I genuinely still have no idea why in the Cinnamon Toast Buns I gave a Granny Smith apple a 3 out of 5 on flavor. I guess it messed me up so much that the perception of the tier list just changed entirely when I was on it. No, the flavor's not 3 out of 5. It's 1.5 out of 5. As much as I still hate to say this, its flavor is better than the Red Delicious. When something that's as bitter as Warhead candy literally beats something out in just pure flavor, that's when you know how bad the Red Delicious is. You can see the evidence that you're not supposed to eat it raw. Just don't do it. The next apple I have on this list is Honeycrisp, which I'm going to change the skin from 2.5 to 3.5. I tried another one recently, and yeah, the skin wasn't as bad as I made it out to be. I think I made it pretty low initially because it was during the early part of filming, and I didn't know how low some apples would go. And finally, the Gala literally gets the exact same treatment. I'm changing it from 2.5 to 3.5. It's literally the same as the Honeycrisp apple in terms of skin. So anyway, after those changes, here's the final score list of the apples. I don't know how I'm gonna. And here's the final enjoyment list of the apples, right here. I hope I'm doing this right. I'm below the cap. But yes, unfortunately, these lists are final. I'm afraid to say that my research is just completely correct and you cannot have a different opinion. Even though I only took one sample from each variety of apple, I'm correct, you're wrong. If this video gets anywhere, I really encourage other people to like make their own apple tier list, you know. Like I said, since I live in Kansas, there's just not a ton of apples I get to choose from. You may have more varieties of apples to choose from and you critique. But seriously, though, I really want to see more apple tier lists. Anyways, that's it. I need to go take a shower because this video is long enough as is, so I'll see y'all in the next video.